So, welcome to Financial Aid Basics. We're going to talk a little bit about financial aid, how to navigate the questions you might receive from students about financial aid, and the basics of what type of aid's out there, how to apply for it, and when students should apply for it. My name is Christina Winstead, and I'm joined by my amazing partner in College Access, Yasleen, and we are going to have this recorded for y'all, especially those who are participating in our 12th year campaign, Spring Push. We also have a link to a document that you can use that has all of our resources from this training that you'll be able to follow up with. It includes not just the resources that we're talking about now, but we'll add more resources throughout the time that we're working together. We update this document pretty frequently, so you'll come back and see updated resources as well as updated links. I wanted to start with our training intention. Our intention for these trainings is really to support you as educators, as those who are helping students with their journey as they really pursue their education after high school. We draw from our own experiences when we're talking about financial aid. And we really do that to cement the learning within the training, but we acknowledge that every student has their own lived experiences and they're unique, and it changes how they perceive and engage with financial aid. So we want to acknowledge that when we're talking about the work that we're doing, that sometimes we'll use humor, but we know that this is a serious topic. And some of the humor that we use is from our own missteps or the missteps of students that have said, please tell people that you spend your financial aid on your tuition and not Vegas, things like that. Today, we're going to talk about what financial aid is, the types of financial aid, of course, that timeline, which we're on a little bit of a different timeline this year, but our timeline for financial aid. We're going to talk about the steps to applying for financial aid. We're going to talk about the resources available to you as you support students and resources available to your students as they navigate this. And then we'll talk about next steps. We're so excited about our 12th year campaign spring project, and so we're excited to bring this to you. I pulled this data yesterday for y'all. So I pulled this on 4/28/25, and currently we're sitting at 40% of our seniors who've completed, that's for class of 2025, completed a FAFSA. We have 60% who haven't completed, and we know the importance here is that in talking to a lot of you in student surveys, we're seeing a much higher percentage of students who would like to pursue some sort of education after high school. So we know there are more students out there who may not be aware of what's available to them. And my whole goal is to make sure that every student knows what's available to them so they can make an informed choice how they want to pursue and engage with aid. So our first topic, now that we talked about financial aid, and you might be looking at that data and you're like, oh my gosh, 40%, Christina, we've been working so hard on this so long. Why is it only at 40%? And you can see your own school data on this portal. If you are bummed out about this, I want you to know that everybody's working very hard on financial aid, and one person by themselves is not going to increase financial aid across the state. But all of us, the importance of this is all of us working together through collective impact. That's how we're going to bring those numbers up. So if you're beating yourself up over this, I also want you to know that we are 22nd in the nation for year-over-year change. And we're sitting at 45th in the nation for financial completion. And usually we're 48th. So we are seeing growth. So if you're feeling bummed out, please reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to you about other data points to show the work that you're doing. But there's a lot of work going on, and I'm excited about us coming together to address it through collective impact. So let's talk about financial aid and where it comes from. Financial aid is simply money to pay for education after high school. It's to make education after high school more affordable. It's not just one application, but it's multiple types of funding that come together to help pay for that education. So I know, as Washingtonians, we are not fans of umbrellas usually, but for financial aid purposes, I'm encouraging you to embrace the umbrella. And really what it does is it means instead of thinking about it as just one application, but thinking about the types of funding that are available to students when they apply for aid. So the four main types of funding are going to be our grants, scholarships, loans, and work study. Grants are income-based. They're my favorite type of financial aid. I received grants when I went to college, and they made the difference between me doing what I love every day and me maybe not having that opportunity. It provided me financially changed the trajectory of what I was able to do with my life. And that's why it's so important to me. Those income-based programs, there are federal, state, and institutional grants. Grants are gift aid, and we'll talk more about them in a little bit. Scholarships are another one of my favorite types of financial aid. Oh my gosh. Scholarships are amazing. There's merit-based, income-based, interest-based. There is scholarships for everything out there. And so I encourage you, when students are thinking about scholarships, the thing I'm finding from them right now, which breaks my heart, is they don't think they're going to get them. I had a student say, like, why would someone invest in me? They don't even know me. They don't realize that someone invested in them as a student and they want to do the same thing for somebody else. So I'm always encouraging students to apply for scholarships. Loans are funds that are my least favorite type, but they are the reality for a lot of students. And so loans are income based, and there's federal and private loans. We'll also talk more about that. And then finally, the work study program. Those of us who participated know how much we love it. But the word work and the word study together as a program title to students sounds like the biggest bummer. It's like hard pass, no thank you. But really, what it is a chance to work on campus or sometimes off campus, earn money while going to school to help offset the cost of your education. Let's talk about a little bit more about these grants. Grants are amazing. They are gift aid. They typically don't need to be paid back, except for, and here's the fine print, and that is if the student doesn't meet what's called satisfactory academic progress, or SAP. And just like real SAP, it can be sticky. Students have to maintain a certain GPA in order to receive their aid, and they have to complete a certain percentage of the classes they attempt. So it doesn't mean that if a student takes a bunch of classes and they fail one that they're going to have to start paying everything back, but they have to, through calculation, meet a certain GPA and meet that completion ratio. This is my example of that. So I was teaching at a community college. It was my first quarter. I was super excited. I even made goodie bags for the students. It kind of looked like a kindergartner's birthday party, but I was super stoked. All my students show up first day, and I hear that that's kind of rare. So I'm super excited. I sign off everybody's paperwork. Day two, I get ghosted by a student. She just never comes back. And everyone's like, don't worry, Christina. I thought it was my snack game, that it wasn't on point. That's why she didn't come back. But she had other things going on. End of the quarter shows up. I'm doing my finals with my students. I made them all little goodie bags again. We also had a buffet to eat while they were doing their finals. And a student came in and started loading themselves up a plate. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm a professor and now I'm a chef. This is amazing. And so as she's chowing down on my eggplant rollatini, I asked her, I said, I'm so sorry. Like, we just finished class. Like, feel free to eat. But like, and she was like, oh, I'm a student in this class. You are? I don't recognize you. She's like, yeah, I was here on day one. Okay, let's sit down and eat. What happened? She goes, oh, well, did you know you sent me a check? I went, I don't send checks. That's not I don't have check money. And she goes, oh yeah, well you did. And I said, yeah, probably for your books and supplies if it came from the college. And she said, no, no, no. There was no note inside that said books or supplies. I went, okay. What did you do? And she said, did you know Alaska Airlines had a sale? It was like an anniversary sale. You could go to Vegas round trip for $50. That's when my heart went all the way to my stomach. But don't worry that we could go further, because then she said she let it ride, and that's when my heart just left the building. She spent all of her money in Vegas. She dropped it all. Her and her bestie, 2 weeks in Vegas. They spent all of their money, and then she didn't come back to classes. She did owe money back, because financial aid is amazing for paying for your education, but not for paying for Vegas, because it is not a gamble. So that student, it took her like an extra quarter to be able to get in good standing to be able to pay back her funds. Now, of course, she was like, well, I got gift aid and it was a gift. You can't take that back. We always want to make sure like that students are aware that there are policies that they have to, like, they could be in a repaying status. But for most students, that is not the case. For grants, the amazing part for Washington State is that we have the Washington College Grant, and then there's also the federal Pell Grant. Washington College Grant is one of my favorite things about Washington, and we have mountains, so that says a lot. But the WA Grant, which you might hear it called Washington College Grant or WA Grant because there was a um, branding work that they did on it, so you might hear it called both. Like WA Grant's kind of the cutesy nickname. It's really this groundbreaking program that's helping our middle and low income families with the cost of their education, specifically tuition. And it really covers more programs, whether the 2-year program, 4-year program. It also covers certificates and approved apprenticeships. So whatever the pathway is, then that student should be able to navigate towards the funding for it. So I know the misconception can be that like financial aid is just for bachelor's degrees, but really it does cover a variety of pathways for students. So students want to think about what they love and what earns a family wage. and how to get to that goal for the cheapest price possible. And the WA grant makes that happen. The reason I love WA grant so much is because I was a recipient of the state lead grant, and this is a more improved version of what I received. So it's really exciting to see future Washingtonians receive the help that I received that allows me to do what I love every day. So for the WA grant, a family of four making up to 120,000 will see some sort of sliding scale gift aid. And if a family of four is making less than 78,500, they will get a full tuition award. And there's a really cool calculator that students and families can use to see how much they should be expecting from Washington State. So they can put in their family size and their income closest to 500, like annual income, and it will tell them what to expect from Washington. But ultimately, they need to apply for aid to be eligible for it. Scholarships are amazing. As someone who also receives scholarships, I am finding there are scholarships that are going unawarded out there. And so I encourage scholarships are another gift aid option to help pay for education after high school. Um, there are single use scholarships, there are renewable scholarships. There are my favorite renewable and last dollar scholarships, and that would be the Washington State Opportunity Scholarship, where the students receive the scholarship funds that are returned back after everything else has been paid for. So last dollar scholarships are amazing. They're the ones that the money goes in last, which means the students are able to receive the funding as a refund check. Um, the other piece with scholarships is just getting students to apply. Students can be hesitant, and I am finding that the students that I'm reading their essays, they're not bragging about themselves. I mean, they're not even humble bragging. I thought maybe we would have taught that generationally that we can humble brag, but they're not even humble bragging in their essays. I encourage you, if you know the student, read their essay. You might be able to provide a little more clarity on what sets them out from others, what sets them apart. But ultimately, I encourage students to have a parent or friend read their scholarship essays. Sit down, get a pizza, pass that essay to the left, have somebody know, because even the students are not bragging about themselves, their friends and their families will brag about them. Have them write in what was missed, pass that around, and then they'll get a more comprehensive like idea of what to put into that scholarship application. Another scholarship that you might see is the American Endowed, Indian Endowed Scholarship. And so there are 10 to 15 awards. And what I like about this scholarship is this scholarship's like the unicorn of scholarships because it prioritizes upper division and graduate level students. So if you're working with a student who has a long-term education plan that also includes some graduate school, this might be another option for them. Loans. Again, my least favorite type, but let's talk about the reality that most of our students will have to take some sort of loan out. Um, the thing about loans is that students don't have to take out the whole amount. They can take out a partial loan. So if they get offered $3,000, but they need 1,000, take the 1,000. That's why I tell students, take the $1,000, not the 3,000. Reject the funds that you don't need because you will find a way to spend it when it's in your hands, and you do have to repay it. There are two main types of loans that the federal government will offer students, and that's a subsidized or an unsubsidized loan. So those subsidized loans are loans that they are the minute the student takes it out, the government's like, don't worry, we're going to pay the interest on it while you're in school and for a short period after. We got you. Unsubsidized loans, those are the loans that the student takes it out, and the minute they start taking the loan, their interest starts accruing. So we want them to take their subsidized before unsubsidized, um, and they don't have to take the whole amount. So they can think about other ways to offset the cost of their education. Another thing to think about is like students might want to take out loans to buy things that are not needed for their education. And I always encourage students to they're going to buy something. Like I had a student who's like, I'm going to buy an Xbox. And I'm like, awesome. Let's calculate how much that's going to cost you over 10 years of repayment, the standard repayment plan, to show you how much you're actually going to pay for that product that will be technologically obsolete by the time you pay it off, and why it's probably not the smartest decision to use the funds for that. Work study. If you were a work study student and you feel comfortable sharing your experience with students, it's very helpful. For me, I loved my work study experience. For me, it was the first time an employer They saw my role as student and honored it and valued it. It was the first time where an employer didn't say, so and so called in sick. Are you going to come in for this shift? Even though I had school. It was the first time where an employer didn't punish me for not working extra hours because I was in school and not having that extra availability. Where, if I couldn't cover for that sick person's shift because I had a chem final, the next week I'd be working 2 hours every lunch for the whole week, and that's all the hours I would get. When I was doing finals as a work study student, it was the first time my boss came to me and said, hey, you got finals coming up. Do you want to take a little extra time this week to study and then work extra hours next week? I thought they were punking me. I thought for sure I was going to get canned. They just wanted me to be successful. Not every student is going to end up in the financial aid office like me, but if they do and they love it, don't worry, there's a support group. But there's a lot of fun jobs on campus in student life, at the gym, at the library. I encourage students to see this as an option to help gain some work experience at the same time earn money for school because some of these roles could be close to what they want to go into for a career. I had a student that wanted to go into event planning and their student life job really gave them a supplemental education they weren't going to get in the classroom. How to write contracts, how to do catering contracts, release forms. What do we do when we have catering contracts we can't get released from and it snows 3 inches in Olympia and we have to cancel the event and we have 500 burritos? What do we do? Spoilers, we get in a van and we hand them out to people downtown. But she learned all of that in her work study. It was amazing. I encourage, if you have a work study experience, share it with your students. So those are the types of aid. Let's talk about where they come from and how to access them. So first up, federal government. Federal government's going to have funds through the FAFSA that can be used at most schools in most states as long as they're eligible for federal aid. State aid is for Washingtonians to use in Washington to attend schools in Washington state. So you need to be a Washingtonian and you need to stay in Washington. Now, if you're staying in Washington, you can use federal and state funds at the same time on those schools. So staying in Washington is going to be more advantageous. And students might be excited about stretching their wings and autonomy, but also Washington, man, you can just like drive for 6.5 hours and still be in the same state. So there's a lot of state to traverse and to spread your wings and still receive those state funds to maximize your education costs. Then the colleges will have funds. This can be things like the, hey, come on our campus tour and get a $500 credit. This can be their scholarships that they offer through their foundation, but really specifically to attend their institution. And then organizations will offer either scholarships or in-kind donations. This can be from businesses, churches, nonprofits, the bakery down the road who gives you a cookie if you finish your financial aid application and tell them. It really is just a little bit like it's the community help. So for federal aid programs, there is the federal Pell Grant, which is amazing. There is federal work study, which means that if a student wants to work off campus at a federal office, they can. Like I had a student that wanted to work in the VA office because that's what they wanted to go into, and they were able to get that work experience. Then there's those subsidized and unsubsidized loans, but a third type of loan that parents can take out in their name for their student's education that stays in their name. So those loans never revert to the student. I think sometimes that's a confusion for parents. And I always caution with parent loans for parents to think about their own student debt before they start taking out the parent loans. For example, I had a parent that she just kept signing for parent loans, not thinking about how much it was rolling over and how much it was becoming, and her student changed majors. Her son changed majors a couple times, but by the time I talked to her, she had over 100,000 in student like in parent loans, and she had lost her job and she didn't know how she was going to pay for the next child. And thank goodness she was able to do an appeal for financial aid because of her job loss, and she was able to get gift aid for her second child, but she's still responsible for those loans. And she was like, I thought they transferred to my son's name when he turned 25. I don't know why. And so we want to make sure parents understand those loans before they take them out. In Washington, we have the most equitable state financial aid in the nation. Uh, it is amazing. So we have the Washington College Grant or the WAC grant. We have College Bound, which we'll talk more about in a second. We have State Work Study. We have Passport to Careers, which is our program for our youth who are experiencing unaccompanied homelessness, those who are experiencing foster care or alumni of foster care, and it allows them to, and we'll talk more about it, but to navigate one or two pathways, the Opportunity Grant and the Bridge Grant. And those are our opportunity pathways. Most of them are implemented by WASAC. And then we also have the Washboard. And that is a scholarship warehouse where you build a profile and it matches you to it. So let's talk about College Bound. College Bound has a two-step process. Students are automatically enrolled in the College Bound program if they're eligible for free or reduced price lunch in seventh or eighth grade. And there's a small population of ninth graders who are also newly eligible. If a student is in foster care, they are automatically enrolled anytime from middle school through all the way up to high school graduation. And so that population is the only one that can register at any point in time. And then everyone else is auto enrolled. The second step really doesn't come until high school. And you might be thinking, oh my gosh, so we talked to them in middle school and that's it. Then they get all of this engagement through OtterBot. They get emails letting them know what's available to them. This allows them to dream big about what they want to do as opposed to focusing all of their energy on how am I going to afford education after high school. And then senior year comes and step two is where it kicks in. Step two is where we have students fulfill the college bound commitments by meeting the residency and income requirements by completing a financial aid application. And they need to be accepted to attend an eligible institution within 1 year of graduation. That means they could take a gap year, which is awesome, but gap years turn to gap decades real quick, as we can see. And so we want to make sure the student has a plan. Maybe they're going to apply for admissions and do a deferment of enrollment. Right now, there's no longer a 5 year window from legislation from last year of using these funds. And there's no longer a GPA requirement for students to go to the community college. So it used to be a 2.0 GPA requirement no matter what. Now it's only a 2.0 GPA requirement for their high school graduation if they want to immediately attend a 4 year university, and they'd have to have their caters as well. This is great for students who want to go to the community college and then transfer to the university as well. They can do that. It covers tuition by combining with other state aid to cover the average cost of tuition at public rates. So it's going to cover like UW, Wazoo is the highest public tuition rates. If the student's going to a private school, there's going to be a difference between the two, but a lot of the private schools have a scholarship that covers the difference. And it can be used at over 65 schools in Washington State. So Passport is the program for our youth who are experiencing unaccompanied homelessness or they're at risk for homelessness and self-supporting, or if they are a former foster youth alumni of foster care or experiencing foster care. There are two pathways for this program. And for these applicants, a lot of the time they are considered independent for financial aid purposes, which means if they were in foster care anytime after the age of 13, if they're unaccompanied and if they're unaccompanied and homeless, or if they are at risk for homelessness, if they're unaccompanied at risk for homelessness and self-supporting, then they will be independent for the financial aid application, which means they only have to complete their portion of the application. So they have two pathways. They can do the passport to college or passport to apprenticeship, depending on what their pathway is. And so they would have to go into an approved pre-apprenticeship or apprenticeship program, or they can go into higher education through, and for the passport to college can also mean technical programs, associates as well. We last year had a event for those who were wanting to pursue education after high school who were in foster care. And it was lower attended, but we're probably going to do the same thing this upcoming year where we'll have an event that you can send your students to. This population has some of the lowest educational outcomes, but they are the easiest applications to do for financial aid. And the Passport program allows them to have a little bit more support as they're going through and pursuing their education after high school. Okay, let's talk about the timeline and steps to applying for financial aid. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. If I don't answer them right away, then one of us will as soon as we're done with the presentation. But also, when you're putting any questions in the chat, don't put anything in there that will be student identifying. And if you don't want to message directly in front of everybody, just message directly to me. So when applying for financial aid, we just want to note that we're asking for really private information. It's really hard conversations to have when we're asking about eligibility, when we're talking about finances, marital status, we're talking about chosen family, not chosen families, but like bio families over chosen families. It's an interesting and can be a challenging and triggering conversation. Students may be uncomfortable with submitting a financial aid application and for any reason. And if that's the case, we just want to make sure people know that a student can decide if they do not want to pursue federal aid for whatever reason, if they're eligible for federal aid. If they don't want to pursue federal aid, they can apply just using the WAFSA to be considered for just state aid um, instead of applying for aid through the federal application. And then we have privacy statements for both applications on there so students and families know where their information and data is going. We just wanted to remind people that there is an option for students to forfeit their federal aid and just use state aid application if they're uncomfortable with using a federal app. Or they might be in a circumstance um, they might be in default on a federal student loan. So this might be our adult population, and they might still be eligible to get state aid. So always have them assess themselves. And we never know a student status. So I encourage put the WAFSA up on the WAFSA questionnaire page, and it asks them a couple questions, and it'll tell them which application to go to. And we're never breaking any rules by asking status. We're just putting them on the application assessment tool to see what they need to apply for. That leads us to our rule of one. In Washington, we have 2 applications. No one wants to do 2 applications for anything, and they don't have to. They will only do one. They're going to do the FAFSA or the WAFSA. The FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid, and the WAFSA is the state application, which is also free. Both applications are free to apply. I'm going to say that again. It's a free to apply for financial aid. If you hear people charging to apply for financial aid, let us know. There's lots of resources also for students to get help in this process. So both applications are free. If the student is a U.S. citizen from freely associated states like Marshall Islands or even has certain refugee statuses, then they will most typically fill out the FAFSA to be considered for federal and state aid at the same time. So when you fill out the federal application, we are considering you for federal and state aid at the same time. If the student is ineligible for federal aid or has made a decision to not pursue federal aid, or if they are undocumented, they can pursue state aid by being a Washingtonian. And to be a Washingtonian, you just need to maintain a domicile in Washington for 12 months for purposes other than college. And that means that some visa statuses, like student visas, some business visas, they will not allow you to maintain a domicile in the United States. And so those students would not be eligible for establishing and maintaining a domicile. But our undocumented students who have lived in Washington for 12 consecutive months for purposes other than college, they can pursue this. And so that just means one rainy / sunny / smoky / maybe snowy year, you're one of us, you're a Washingtonian, get rid of that umbrella, get a jacket with a hood, and get some sweet, sweet Washington state aid. So here are the eligibility requirements, and we don't expect you to know the requirements to a T. So we have flyers in multiple languages that you can share with your students, and they're in the Padlet, which is on that list of links. And we'll talk more about the Padlet at the end. Important dates. Class of 25, they're going to do the 25-26 FAFSA or WAFSA, and it's open and available right now. And they're going to use 2023 income information. You also might have some very excited juniors who are almost seniors themselves. We will be hosting Class of 2026 financial aid nights starting next month, and we'll have those in May and June, and of course in the fall. And they're going to start applying for financial aid using the 26-27 application in October of 2025. I'm so far from what I've seen from the federal government, it looks like we will have an October 1 release with some beta testing that's going to happen in August and September. So we are really looking at preparing next year. We're back to a pumpkin spice and everything nice and financial aid year. And so anytime you see pumpkin spice starting to show up, and I'm not talking about false pumpkin spice season, which is like Starbucks, but like when you start seeing pumpkin spice at everything, when the pumpkin spice combos are gross, then it's time to think about financial aid every year that you go to school. So here is your timeline. You're going to gather the required documents of students, and this timeline is going to look different. This is like if the student, this timeline might be shortened if the student is starting right now. So they may be gathering the documents and creating an FSA ID and applying all at once because they're seniors. But typically, students like our class of 26 are going to be gathering the required documents in the spring and creating an FSA ID or WAFS account in the spring. Then they're going to apply for financial aid in October. And they're going to apply for admissions at the same time because there's different deadlines. Admissions have deadlines, financial aid have deadlines, and they're typically two separate deadlines. So they're going to apply for admissions and financial aid around the same time. They do not have to apply to the college in order to apply for aid. They can put 20 schools on their application, and it's pretty easy to navigate that. Then if they get any sort of contact from the college, they want to follow up. So if the college sends a letter, a portal notification, if they send a postcard, especially if it's from the financial aid office, I don't care if they send a pigeon with a note tied to its leg. It means typically the student's been picked for verification and they need to do something in order to get their funds. And the financial aid office can't do anything until they go through that process. And then they will look at their award letters and their financial aid offers and their decisions for, like, they'll decide if they're going to go to a certain school based upon their admissions or looking at comprehensively their aid as well. To apply for aid, they are going to need they won't, it's not required that they have a driver's license. But if they have one, it makes it a little easy to put the information, especially if they have a real ID because it matches to what the Social Security has. Income information is great to have. They're going to import everything from the IRS, but they may have other tax documents they're going to want to bring. So that includes bank statements because they're going to ask about that for assets, child support statements, and then if they have a small business or investment farm, they're going to want to know the valuation of those. And then if their parents have a SOCH, awesome. And if they don't, awesome as well, because what will happen is it's going to ask on there, does your parent have a SOCH? They check no if they don't. But if they do have a social security number, the information when they're creating their FSA ID needs to be exactly listed on their social security card because that's what they're matching to. So no nicknames, no guessing the social security number. It's great if they can look at the card first. If the student sees that their name is misspelled, no worries. I always tell them that once you create the miracle of life, that first 2 years is really rough, a lot of sleep deprivation, especially that first year when you're doing all the paperwork. And then they may have accidentally put the wrong spelling in, and no worries, they can change it. They will apply using the information as listed on the card, though. Then the first step is creating the FSA ID. So the FSA ID is the account creation for the application. And so they only do this once. This is just them saying, hey, Uncle Sam, I'm going to college next year, and I need you to pony up some of this cash. And then once they create their FSA ID, they're going to use their own phone number and they're going to use a non-high school email address because they lose access to their email after high school. So this is a great time for them to make an email address that they're going to check on a regular basis that won't make an admissions officer blush. And I say that because my old boss at the college would pass me applications and say, read that out loud. And like literally there are email addresses I couldn't read out loud without losing my job. And I tell students, don't be that student. Because also you're going to be using this for scholarships, and that's a little embarrassing. Everyone contributing to a financial aid application is going to need an FSA ID, anyone. And for some situations, that means both parents are going to have to create one. FSA IDs at this point in time have to be verified before they can be used. There are some exceptions for those who don't have social security numbers. And that potentially this could change, and I will let you know if there's any changes to federal student aid. But there's no longer a signature page, but that 1 to 3 day waiting period is potentially going to be changed and reduced to 0 days. We will wait to find out from federal student aid, but as of right now, that is what I'm hearing from them, is that we may no longer have to wait 1 to 3 days. We'll wait to find out. As soon as I know, I'll put it in the Padlet. There have been some flexibilities for those who don't have a social security number in the verification process. So if a parent doesn't have a SOCH, they do not need to go through the verification process at this time. They will be automatically verified to use that FSA ID to provide information on a student's application. At some point in time, they will have to have their information verified after federal student aid develops a process that allows them to connect the ITIN numbers to the direct data exchange, the DDX. Once that happens, then we will let you know about the process and that is established by federal student aid. Okay, there's 2 ways to apply. There's the website and a paper application. I encourage the website because it is available in Spanish as well, but also it's a quicker processing time. The paper application is great if you, especially if you're working with justice involved youth who need access to the application but don't have access to the internet, or other families who are struggling with internet access. This year, processing time has been pretty traditional within 1 to 2 weeks, but last year processing did not start until August. And so I know that there's some hesitancy. We try to use them sparingly. The online application is available in English and Spanish. And then we have the WAFSA. The WAFSA is the state application. So again, they're only going to do one. Fast for the WAFSA, never both unless their circumstances change. They will do the questionnaire to ensure that this is the correct application for them. They will create their account. They'll use, again, their own email address, not a high school email address, and they will need internet access for this process. The application itself is dual language in English and Spanish, so it'll have the question in English and then the question in Spanish. Our most common errors that we saw were came down to like legal information being incorrectly inputted, so not putting in their legal name, but putting in a nickname or a shortened version of a name or a preferred name. Oops, back one. The incorrect WAFSA year or FAFSA year. So maybe they applied to go to college while they're in high school. That happens a lot where they're like, I'm going to be going, and then they pick the year that they're in high school. So they want to make sure they're applying for the year that they're going to college. Not clicking submit is one. They think they're done because they checked all those boxes and it says one more time, like to click here to submit. And you might think you've submitted, but until they see a student report, a student aid report, they haven't submitted it. And then putting incorrect parent information in. So picking the incorrect parent, it has changed in the last couple years. It is the parent that provides, if the parents are divorced, it's the parent that provides the most financial support. And in the past, it was who the student lived with the most, but now it is who provides the most financial support. If it is a 50-50 split, they are going to see who has the most assets and income and use their information. So those are the most common errors. I'm going to pass it to Yasmin to talk about our known issues of financial aid applications in the FAFSA.
Yes. So, this page, many of you may have known that came about last year. And that's the page that Federal Student Aid continues to use to alert either new issues that are being found or existing issues, continuous issues, and how to work around those. So yeah, please reference this page if you have any questions on like maybe something's not working. Quick reference, see what they say. If it's still not working, then make sure to reach out to one of us and see if we've found another workaround or just heard of it in general. Okay, so something new that's come out of the last almost 5 months or 4 months now, I guess, is that the student demographic question on what is the student's sex has been changed. This isn't what it looked like before. Um, Before that, it used to let students click prefer not to answer or had other options, and now it's limited to these two options, male or female. Um, we encourage that you remind your students that all of these demographic questions are only for research purposes only. It's not going to affect if they receive more aid, less aid, if they get into a school or not. But also just keep in mind that this is something that students maybe thought was going to change, or especially like transgender students who on their birth certificate or whatever it may be, it lists a sex that they don't identify with, and now they're having to go through all of that again on a federal student aid question or on a federal document, just in general. The little eye icon, it used to lead to a page and it used to give a big explanation, like this is what you should use. But there's no page right now. So there's no guidance. You are your student's guidance. So just make sure that you also understand that as well. If students run into special circumstances, there are ways that they can fix that. Like if their income has significantly changed since the last time they filed taxes, if their parents got laid off, if their parents switched jobs, whatever it may be, parents are divorced now, that their income doesn't reflect their tax information, there is a way for them to go around that. They can contact their colleges or universities and just let them know that. But they can also use the Swift Student tool that helps them build out a letter or gather all the documents they need to be able to present it to the colleges. Swift Student offers like 20 different templates on like 20 different special circumstances that financial aid can help with. So make sure to use that tool. Something important to note is that that tool does not share data with third parties, and that has become a hot topic among our youth on data sharing and privacy and all that. So that's a huge plus for some student. If you are serving students that do not qualify for FAFSA or for WASFA, there are still other options for them. There are scholarships to those students, and that's typically what they're going to be eligible for. Right here, we're providing or promoting, sorry, Immigrants Rising. That is not the only avenue for them. It's not the only organization that offers scholarships or fellowships or whatever it may be, but this is something that where they have a database and we've just thought it's easier to use. There are local scholarships, there are statewide scholarships or foundations that have been built for undocumented students. So make sure to always look those up for your students as well. Um, and then checking with the college's financial aid office, seeing if there's any grants or any other financial help that they're able to offer your students, but also checking if they have an undocumented student center or a multicultural center where these students are able to receive support beyond the financial support, but emotional support, um, just like a sense of belonging, because it all ties together. Some of your students might be in the verification process. There are many reasons that they could be selected. It could be random, it could be to clarify maybe tax information. I know I've helped several students who they put in their parents' tax information into their section. So if they never caught that on time or they didn't see that, the college might reach out and say, "Hey, I noticed that you put the same information as like for your income information and your parents. Is that right? Is that not?" That could be a reason. It's important for students to pay attention to those requests. They could be coming from email, they can be coming through their portal. So it's important that they're constantly checking that and they're able to send a response as soon as possible or within the time frame they're given, so they get those award letters and have options to choose. All right, some resources. WASAC has students who are immigrants and are undocumented or have DACA page. This kind of goes through that privacy statement that Christina talked about earlier. Also has links to a bunch of just resources. There is National Immigration Law Center Toolkit, kind of gives you more insight on what access to post-secondary nationwide is, but it also has like a map and it'll show you like the policies and state laws. So you can like zoom into Washington and it'll show you all those state laws, what they mean, everything like that for our immigrant students. And of course, the 12th year campaign, we're always here to help if you need any of our materials, training, online completion events, all of that is free and open to you all and open to your students and families. And this is us and our info. When prepping to do FSAID or WASFA account, I know this project is heavily focused on the class of 2025, but also we as the 12th year team are already thinking about your rising seniors. So if you don't use this year, this is something good to maybe print out for next year, but it literally guides them on how to make an FSAID, how to make a WASFA account, who needs to make one, who doesn't. And then it has a worksheet attached to it where they can be writing down, this is the email I use, this is a password, this is the answer to every single challenge question. Because students forget, even if they just made their password and email like 5 minutes ago. They're like, I can't remember what I just did. So this is a good way to go around that. All right, we have a Padlet for students that literally has all the links that you could possibly think about. I think the number one question at a financial aid event is like, how do I get to the FAFSA form? This has the link for you, so you don't have to start. The College Access Resource Padlet is for you all who are practitioners, who are advising students, who want to be involved in this process with the students. Something cool about this is like the financial aid updates tab, and then this week in financial aid, it will literally have the most up-to-date information that we have. Christina does a really good job at updating this as soon as she finds out. So if you're ever curious about something or you heard something about it in the news, this is a good place to look at maybe what we're looking at as well. The Washington College grant videos, they are in 7 different languages. If you have a student or a family that's not understanding what the Washington College grant is, but maybe a limited amount of time with them, this is something that you can send home with them as homework and then follow up with them. Financial aid completion data. I know Christina shared that table earlier in the slides, but if you're wanting to get to that dashboard and you're not knowing how to get there or you need the link, this is the information. They're also in that Google Docs. But like Christina said, you can see aggregate data. You're not able to see student-specific data, but you can look at schools, you can look at school districts and see where you're kind of at. I believe that we have checked for everyone on this call if you have FAFSA completion portal users, and I believe everyone does. But if you do not, or if you know of people who need this access that maybe are working on your team, who don't have access, they can request access and sign the NDA and understand what that means. And this would allow you to access student specific data at your school and see if maybe a student has an error or wasn't fully submitted and you were able to pull in that student that way. Just a reminder, this is super student specific so that when you sign that NDA, you are not allowed to share that information with anyone but yourself and the team member maybe that has that NDA also signed. You're not able to show other school staff or other people who do not have NDA signed. Um, but plus side, everyone can access the aggregate data that we just talked about previously. So yeah. The FastFoot prototype is available to you all. It still has a 25-26 application, but if you're just looking to play around in it, this is a good way. We have a student loan advocate office. This is for your students, but also for yourselves. I know loans have been a really hot topic. Like on TikTok, that's all people talk about. They're like, are they going away? What if they go away? Do you still have to pay them? Is if the Department of Ed eliminates, do you still have to pay them? This is where our student loan advocate office is able to answer all those questions for yourself and for your students and families. OtterBot. All of you hopefully will become super familiarized with OtterBot after this project, but basically it is a free texting service in Washington to support high school students and their guardians. It was specifically designed for college-bound students, but we are now in the process of enrolling all students. Content areas are financial aid, admissions and enrollment, college going info, and notifications and reminders. So it's not just about financial aid, and I think that was a huge misconception in the beginning. It gives you a little bit of everything for students and parents. Yeah. Our college and career knowledge book and the student lessons are new as of this year. So we know of a school that's using the student lessons as part of their week of college and career tech kind of advising week and stuff like that. So make sure to check those student lessons out and see how they can help you maybe in your advising periods or whatever it may be. If you are wanting to order those books, we have a material order form, but also has a bunch of other materials from Otterbot, College Bound, and of course 12th year. Orders are processed weekly and could take up to 2 to 4 weeks to arrive, just depending on how fast the mail is. Um, we ask that you please coordinate with your school staff or district staff. If they've already placed orders, you don't want too much of something because things could change, updates could be made, and then those books are no longer good. So just have enough for you to have a little bit of a stock, but not a huge stock. And this is us. This is who is leading this project, and many of our point of contacts are on here. If you have any questions about literally anything, it could be this project or outside of this project, um, please let us know. And there's a couple minutes left, and I was trying to rush so we get to questions.
I
Oh,
wanted to
yeah.
see if you'd be willing to, and it's in the, let me pull up, can you pull the link out of the presentation because I can't pull it from the deck? If you'd be willing to answer a couple questions in our training survey, we're trying to make our trainings more effective. And so we have a quick survey and then wanted to open it up to questions. And I wanted to say thank you. I know it's been a long year this year. We are so grateful for all the work you're doing and for the opportunity to partner with you. And just know that, like, I know we're doing this work in the springtime, but please, like, in the fall, we are also, like, the 12th year campaign is like always cycling, like, it's always around. So we're here to help you, not just right now in the spring, but in the fall as well.